Have you ever been through an exceptionally difficult, dark period in your life? Maybe one that was so hard and so long that it made you question a lot of things about your life that you previously took for granted? If so, you're not alone, and it's very likely you have experienced what we call a dark night of the soul. I'm Jeff, and I teach practical and spiritual methods for organizing and empowering your life. Today, this video is for sharing with you the various stages and also the ultimate purpose of what we call the dark night of the soul. Navigating the experience of a dark night of the soul can be daunting, but knowing its significance can provide you with the courage and also the perspective needed to get through it and make it out to the other side. By exploring its meaning and also its implications, you can gain more insight into how this challenging period can actually lead to a profound spiritual awakening. So the first question is, where exactly does this phrase come from, the dark night of the soul? And what does it actually mean? So it's typically used to describe a period of profound spiritual crisis. And not just any crisis, but a crisis that comes right before a spiritual awakening. It originally comes from the poetry of Spanish mystic Saint John of the Cross. And the term has evolved over time to describe a deep transformative experience that can challenge your very understanding of life and yourself. These dark nights often involve intense personal struggle and a sense of abandonment. And they lead to emotional pain, but also lots of internal reflection. So because of that, during this time, you may feel very lost, disconnected, or just sort of enveloped in darkness, and making it a really intense and emotional and difficult journey. However, the silver lining is that going through this is ultimately going to lead to a heightened sense of clarity in different aspects of your life, as well as a deeper connection to your spiritual path. So this concept also, we find it a lot in Christian and other religious scripture. And now modern interpretations talk about it as well and have used the phrase to describe any sort of psychological or existential crisis that then leads to profound personal growth. But we do see this theme in the Bible, other old religious texts, and I think it resonates today with a lot of people and sort of helps them look at things from a new perspective and also see the value in suffering. Not that any of us wants to suffer, but there can be really profound spiritual gifts when we dive deep and explore what exactly are we going through and why. So the dark night of the soul often serves as a profound period of spiritual transformation. But in order to get to that transformation, you have to experience this dark night of profound spiritual desolation and isolation. And by going through this, you might find yourself encountering really deep truths about your faith and also your true self. This is typically characterized by a journey through darkness. So imagine, major disruptions in your life, and those eventually bring you to this place where you're forced to reevaluate so much of what you once took for granted. So it's a process that really forces you to strip down different aspects of your life and gain insight into your true self and your spiritual side. It's also important when you're going through this that even though you might feel isolated, there are moments of profound spiritual possibility. Lots of people have talked about how difficult these moments can be, but at the same time, how it helps people reach a new level of faith and belief that they never would have been able to get to otherwise. So experiencing a dark night of the soul, what does that actually look like and what triggers it? So it's really an existential crisis that leads to a profound personal transformation. So typically, this kind of a transformation comes about and is triggered by something really personal and intense and emotional, such as the loss of a loved one, maybe the end of a marriage, a divorce, or life-threatening illness, or even knowing someone who has a life-threatening illness. These really intense, deep emotional issues bring us to a point that we wouldn't get to otherwise, and they really can facilitate deep self-understanding and growth. So this dark night of the soul, this existential crisis, really manifests itself as a profound questioning of life. What is the meaning of life? What's its purpose? Why am I here? It may even trigger really intense feelings or anxiety. Lots of emotions will come up during this time, and that's totally normal. It's also really common in a period of a dark night of the soul to have questions about, am I on the right path in my life? Am I following my life's purpose? Despite the amount of money you are or are not making, you might think a lot about, am I doing what I'm meant to do professionally? Or do I have the right people in my life? It's a time of really intense questioning and reevaluating a lot of what we've been doing up until that point. So it's really important that when going through this difficulty, we recognize and also embrace this painful period. And it's certainly not fun to go through this, but it's a unique opportunity, if you allow it, to learn from that darkness and learn the lessons that it has in your own life, and use it to help you get to a deeper level of understanding and a higher level of spirituality. One interesting aspect to this concept of the dark night of the soul is that on one hand, we can look at it as an individual journey, which it certainly is, but you can also look at it at times as a collective one. So, for example, in a global crisis, economic downturn, or environmental disaster, there's often a sense of unity that comes about as a direct result of these difficult times and that darkness. So it's an interesting thing to think about, that while we have our own individual journeys and our own individual dark night of the soul, you can also look at different events through history and look at how sort of collectively groups or tribes or different countries have gone through something similar. So this concept of the dark night of the soul has become a much more understood and popular one. And we see it used as well in art, in music, within our culture. It comes up in all different ways. And we even have heard a lot of different personal stories and anecdotes of, famous people who have been through these kinds of events. So it's interesting how this spiritual idea is sort of coming into mainstream thought more and more, especially over the past few years. So whether you have or are currently going through a dark night of the soul, you're certainly not alone. And I hope some of this background information is helpful as you continue on your spiritual journey. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.